They're dead, Dave.
What, Captain Hollister?
Everybody's dead, Dave.
What, Todd Hunter? What, Selby? Not Chen.
He's dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
Hello, welcome back to the podcast with a personality disorder because we don't know what we're called. We started off this podcast being called They're All Dead, Dave. And now, after recording 6 episodes, we changed it to Everybody's Dead, Dave, because it was at that point that I got the intro made after we'd recorded 6 episodes. And I realised that the ending of the intro ends with Everybody's Dead, Dave, and it just didn't look right. So retroactively, like through some kind of time-space continuum thing, it's always been Everybody's Dead, Dave. Or Everybody is Dead, Dave.
We are consummate professionals and we will not accept otherwise. Anything else is slander.
Exactly. And in the first 6 episodes, we've been introducing it wrong. That's what we're going with. So yeah, welcome to Everybody is Dead,
Everybody's
Dave.
Dead, Dave.
The Red Dwarf review podcast. Mm-hmm. We are up to the 2nd episode of series 2 of Red Dwarf. We being me, Phil Hawkins.
And me, Adam Martyn.
2 people going into this from very different perspectives. Myself, I've watched Red Dwarf for many a decade since I was a young nipper.
And this is actually my very first watch of the show. I have not seen Red Dwarf before, and every episode that you tune in for will be my first impressions of every episode.
So we're up to now Better Than Life, the 2nd episode of Series 2, in which they get mail. You've got mail.
You got mail, yeah.
A big mail pod finally catches up with them because they've turned around and started heading back towards Earth, so their mail... I don't know how it was ever going to catch up with them normally, but they were always heading away from Earth. But it's finally caught up with them, and... yeah, it's after 3 million years, and there's various different bits of mail they get. The Better Than Life is something that comes in the mail, which is a virtual reality thing, which doesn't come into play really. They acknowledge that they've got it, but then it's about halfway through the episode until it actually sort of kicks in that bit of the plot. But one thing I noticed, I don't know if you did, when they were going through all the mail they got, the VHS tapes that are triangles.
Yeah, it's that really cute thing. We've noticed it in episodes before. You know, obviously this is meant to be the far future, yet we're using Sony CRT TVs and videotapes, but obviously constraints of the time. This was made in 1988. I love the attempt, though, to make it slightly futuristic. The fact we're still using VHS tape. Oh, but we've put it in triangles now.
Like, so how is that at all practical?
It probably doesn't even work. And I love the whole... you know, them doing VR before VR, of course, essentially, with the Better Than Like the idea of the games, because it's funny watching shows back then, because obviously in the late 80s, early 90s, VR there was some instances of it, but for many it was still like a pipe dream, wasn't it? You know, the idea you'd put on this thing and you'd be inside a different world or whatever.
Well, it was around in science fiction, wasn't it? Because you had Tron and things.
Yeah.
When was Tron?
Tron was like 82.
Okay, yeah, so you definitely had Tron by that point. So it was around in science fiction, so it was there as a concept, but not really in reality.
No, can I just say, I love when they're going through it, when they've seen what movies they've got, the Friday the 13th pun.
Yo, the new Friday the 13th movie? Friday the 13th part 1649?
Because... again, the horror series Friday the 13th, I think in the main, because I'm a big horror fan as well, and I think in the main universe you've got 8, was it 8 or 9? No, you've got 10 main Friday the 13th films, and then there was like a remake, and then I think a sequel to the remakes. It was one of them, but there's lots. And the premise is just, there is a man who wants to kill people, and he does so. That's pretty much the plot.
It's quite telling that even in the late 80s, there were enough Friday the 13th movies to make this joke.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I looked it up. So by the time this went out in late 1988, there was already 8 Friday the 13th
Wow.
movies, which probably inspired the joke. Because even back then, even now, if you're on your 8th movie of like, it's the same now with things like, you know, like Fast and Furious, isn't it? It's like, oh, Fast and Furious 9, get ready for more fast cars and Dwayne Johnson. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of, it becomes a parody in itself. I don't know. I think that joke just really tickled me, though. I really found it funny.
A lot of the cultural references can date in this show because obviously they're very 80s ones. But I think because of the enduring nature of Friday the 13th and those horror franchises, this one doesn't. This one just still hits today as it did then.
Yeah, they picked well. It's like, I can't think of any other franchise they could have picked, though, where they could have made that joke more effective. I don't know, unless... Just trying to think off the top of my head. No, I don't think they could have picked any other, really.
Because even, like, when Back to the Future did it with Jaws, because there were so many Jaws... But there hasn't been Jaws films since. Whereas this one, there have been more of these Friday the 13th movies. So they definitely got lucky and picked the right one there.
Yeah. They knew. They saw the future. It's like, this thing's going to go on forever. But of course, the main part of the mail initially that we learn is... the letter Rimmer gets, isn't it, about his father? He does.
Oh, but before we go on to that, because that's
before
a serious
rewind.
Bit. Let's rewind those triangular VHSs.
Triangular tapes,
and because Holly gets a video message.
He does. Oh yes, from Gordon.
From Gordon, another ship's AI, and they play it. It's the first move of a chess game. All that, the fact that it's the first move is kind of the punchline to it. And this other one apparently has a massive IQ, like he said, he's a supreme intellect, but he comes across in this very similar way that Holly does, in a kind of like, he seems a bit dim, like he seems a bit simple.
All right, Hal. it's Gordon. Awesome, his intellect, I tell you.
But which is kind of goes against the concept of Holly in the show, because he's meant to be that way because of the 3 million years. Whereas this guy hasn't had those 3 million years. He sent this message 3 million years ago. So, but hey, we can let those little continuity inconsistencies go, because
of course we can.
Good punchline, and I quite like this, seeing another AI ship's computer.
No, absolutely, and I think the best part about Gordon was at the end when he finishes the message, and obviously then there's silence, and he's just looking at the camera. And they hold it for just long enough where it starts to become that awkward laughter of like, oh, what's going on? And then obviously he reveals the punchline. He just doesn't know how to end the call.
How do you turn this off? The siren call of the last year of people using things on Zoom is like, how do you shut this down? It's very, very topical for now.
The amount of awkwardly, you know, all right, bye everyone, yeah, and then you go. Like click, click, click. Yeah, no, I just found it was the perfect timing. If they'd have rushed that joke too quick, it wouldn't have landed. If they'd extended it any longer, it would have just been awkward. Do you know what I mean? I think they left it just the right amount of time for you to go, haha, what's going on? This is weird, and then deliver it. Yeah, so I really like that end joke for Gordon.
Yeah,
I want more of Gordon, actually. Bring back Gordon.
Let's see the continuing chess game. Although he wouldn't have got a reply back for the chess game. Maybe he just sends other messages going like, where are you? Where's your chess move?
Where's your move? Yeah.
So, sorry, I rudely interrupted you talking about Rimmer's message from his mother.
Yes, Mumsy, about his dad dying. And I don't think they meant, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember them saying it specifically in this episode, but going all the way back to series 1, I think in episode 2, you remember I commented about a joke that Rimmer made about his dad committing suicide?
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know why, when he said it was his father, that was maybe because that joke stood out to me so much. For anyone who doesn't know, well, go and listen to the episode, but I just found that joke very jarring for its content for the show anyway. It just came out of nowhere. But I don't think they mention... Obviously, they say, oh, your father's dead, but they don't mention it?
Yeah, and it is like it's news. I mean, obviously he's dead, because it's 3 million years ago, but everyone's dead, as they point out. But but it's like Rimmer wouldn't have known how or why before getting this letter.
Yeah, which makes me thinking back to that line in series 1, either you could explain that away as he was just joking hypothetically, because obviously he resents his father, so maybe making that sort of dark joke about him might fit with his character. Or it could just be a case of the writers didn't plan for series 2 originally, made that joke in series 1, and then thought, right, well, we'll just ignore it. You know, it could just be that. I don't know why. I know I'm harping on about literally one line, but it did just stick out to me through, that whole segment. That was just. But his dad. Well, he said his dad committed suicide, but yet no one's addressing it here. It's just he's dead.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, as happens in lots of comedies, they put a random line in, a joke in somewhere, and then they go, oh, actually, we want to do something else, so let's just ignore that. That didn't
just
happen.
Forget it ever
just forget
happened.
it happened. And,
And I mean,
Rimmer
back then, if you weren't taping it, you weren't going to know, were you? So...
Let's just say that Rimmer made that up. It's probably the kind of thing Rimmer would do to get attention.
But that whole backstory that we then get about Rimmer and his father, I mean, we go to, I've called it like the space deck, where they're like on some sort of observation platform, which looks quite nice, to be fair.
This is another instance of, expanding budgets and sets, because it's really nice having this little area, this sort of observation deck that they can go and look at the stars.
Yeah. And it's quite serene that they have this. I know there's jokes in there, but there's quite frankly more serious moment in sort of the vast emptiness of space. It sort of just made it a bit more poignant, I guess, rather than say if it was just in their quarters or something like that. Because obviously they're talking about, I know everyone's dead, but hearing it brought it back to like it was just yesterday. I don't know, it kind of just felt that whole landscape really reminds you that these two, for them, they are each other's companions in this, because there is literally no one else.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It sort of hit home that aspect.
I know exactly what you mean. And I think it is their relationship, I think, I've noticed in these first 2 episodes of this series, does seem a little bit more like there's a little bit more fondness between them in some scenes.
Yeah.
There's still the sort of brotherly rivalry there. There's still the jibes and, Lister really does love winding him up and all that sort of stuff. But there is, moments like this where, you start to see the hints that they are our friends.
Yeah, I think it's like I've said before, they've got that mutual respect deep down for each, just, whether they want to admit it or not. They do care for each other, but I just thought, that whole backstory, about how he actually resents his dad, about what he made him do, when you break it down, it's actually, I know it's sort of played for laughs, but it's actually quite sad for Rimmer. And I guess you sort of get an insight into why he is the way he is based on that. And I just thought it's one of the most sort of poignant, touching moments in the series so far, really. And I'm not saying they should do one every single episode, because at the heart this is a comedy, but I wouldn't be adverse to seeing every now and then the show sort of pedal the brakes on the comedy just for a scene or two, just to let a serious moment happen.
In addition to the letter from the mum, the video game, which we're going to get to, and the Holly letter, there is also another letter for Rimmer from the Outland Revenue.
Oh, yes. Good old Outland.
I love this. The line...
Relax, it doesn't matter now. They're not going to catch you now, are they?
What do you mean? Just because we're 3 million years into deep space and the human species is extinct? That means nothing to these people. They'll find us.
Yeah. They're still going to come after you regardless.
Tax collectors will get you. And that sort of plays into something that comes up in the... all these little threads, his dad, the Inland Revenue thing, they all sort of play into the virtual reality world as well. So that's quite nice that they, again, set up some things sort of early on in the episode. I've noticed with Red Dwarf that their episodes are very much episodes of 2 halves. Sometimes they feel very disconnected from each other in terms of what's the sort of on the surface going on. Because here, you've got the whole first half, which is about the male. And then you don't get to the sort of virtual reality bit to the second half of the episode. And there's a lot of episodes where that's kind of felt like the thing. They haven't got to the sort of plot bit until halfway through. But it's never felt like a negative thing. I quite like the way they do it.
Yeah, no, it's good. They have a good sense of structure in this show, I think, because a lot of comedies, I think you can look at a lot of comedies, whether of the era or even now, and I think they place less emphasis on the structure of their story and literally focus more on the jokes and nothing else, which is fine. But then, a basis of any story, comedy or otherwise, is to have a good pace. And I think Red Dwarf sort of delivers that, in like what you say, how it can introduce small things and then build on them. It's a very watchable show in that respect, I think.
So then we get to the virtual reality game. The Better Than Life, it's called.
Better Than Life, yeah.
And they put the helmets on.
Which are basically bike helmets.
Yeah, they are. They're cycle helmets, aren't they? Cycle helmets with some wires sticking out of them.
Very sci-fi.
All the budget went on the new set. They don't have much left for the helmets.
Yeah.
And then they get transported into the virtual world, into what I presume is meant to be a tropical beach, but is blatantly just like the coast of England on a very windy day. They go to the effort
a very British
putting
beach.
some palm trees in there, which makes me think that they're clearly meant to be on a tropical beach, but it is very clearly a grey British weather day, which is very windy, and the sea's all grey.
Yeah.
It just doesn't look very appealing.
No, it's very British, as you say, in that respect. And I think I'm curious why they didn't. Maybe it didn't work out too well. Maybe they were planning to use the blue screen back then to do it, because I did notice as soon as they go in, like the first few corridors they go down, you can tell it's set against a blue screen, because in classic TV you can see what they call the fringing, like around the actors. You can see like the little blue or yellow lines around. I noticed that, and I was like, okay. So when they first went in, I was like, right, is this all going to be blue screen or whatever? But as soon as they get on the beach, you know, as you say, they are on a very British beach. But I think it gets away with it, though, just because of the nature of the show. It's like, obviously Rimmer and Lister are assumed to be English, so what else do they know apart from like a coastal beach on a windy day?
Rimmer has been dreaming, of his Fiji beach.
Oh,
It should have been Fiji.
Well, if he was dreaming of that, he didn't dream hard enough.
Clearly not. And talking of the blue screen, there is some pretty bad blue screen effects in these scenes on the beach when they get the vehicles to appear. It does look really bad.
Yeah, there's like parts of the car which are either just gone or are just covered in fringing elements. It's a sign of the times, isn't it? I mean, what's weird though is like with the actual vehicles when they get in them, like I'm mainly thinking with Rimmer's black car that he gets. Like he gets in that, we see that it's there, but yet when it first pops up, it's still blue screen.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why didn't you were going to put the car there anyway? Why didn't you just do the shot and then fade in the actual car that you're using? Well, I just don't know why they blue screened it for that one shot, and then you've got the actual car.
Yeah, they wanted it to appear, but if you'd locked off the camera and just got your
roll back and mix.
Yeah, it would have been...
For any Doctor Who fans out there, yeah.
It would have been fine.
Yeah.
We also get quite a few callbacks to last series in this, including Magruga.
Yes, Magruga.
We found out last series was, we think, the one woman that Rimmer has had sex with.
Emphasis on the one. But yeah.
And in this, he imagines her up in the better than life environment, because you can get anything you want for yourself to give yourself the best life. And he imagines her in the car and goes off, and while the other two are racing off on a moped to a restaurant, he's doing his whatever he wants to do with Magruga.
He's doing his thing. Yeah.
Which obviously we don't see, but they reference it.
Oh, they reference it a lot. I was going to say they don't skimp on the whole what he's done reference. But again, I think it's that one-upmanship thing we talk about with Lister and Rimmer. If Rimmer's had his way with someone, full well he's going to brag about it to Kingdom Come in front of Lister in probably the most... No, it's not for the best, but you can argue like the most derogatory way possible, right down to like doing certain arm gestures.
And it's the same arm gesture
things
from the first series as well when he was talking about her.
Yeah, exactly. And that sort of stuff, you might watch now and think, oh, that's a bit, we wouldn't necessarily do that. But I think you've got to put it, when you think about these characters as relationships, like that, like we said, that's sort of very teenage schoolboyish. Like, that's exactly what they do. Like, they were always trying to be like, yeah, guess what I've done? Way! Like, it's very much that. That's their relationship. So, and in that sense, I found it quite funny. I did think in regards to the game, it's a clever concept. And I think for the show and its budget, they realised it as well as they could have done. Because, I think, again, the restaurant is implied to be, 5-star, the best of the best. And it really just looks like a little calf in coastal England, which is fine, it's fine. But you can tell, they thought, right, we're going to go off Red Dwarf, which is weird to see them somewhere that isn't in space as well. It's very, as a first-time viewer, it's jarring to see him on a beach. But, yeah, it's like they were like, right, we're going to get him out of space. And then when they got to filming, they were like, right, we can't go to Fiji. And we can't film in a 5-star restaurant, so we're just gonna have to make do. But it works, they make it work with what they've got.
In the restaurant was where we got another callback to the first series as well, with the cat. Cat will get a mention in this episode because he's
he will, yeah.
He's does his little song. I'm gonna eat your little fishy.
Gonna get you little fishy. Yeah, I like that. I was
nice
like,
little
there's the
callback
song.
to the very first episode. Where was it? The first or the second episode? The second episode, I think it is, isn't it? Where he breaks his teeth.
Second one, yeah.
So that was a nice little callback as well. I like these little moments where they call back, and I think it's only really watching it as we are so close together that we're watching series 2 so quickly after series 1 that you really notice them.
Yeah, I suppose, because between series 1 and 2, I think transmission-wise, there was a gap of about 6 months. So, unless you'd taped series 1 and were watching it religiously on repeat, yeah, you're right. Those little things people might have forgotten about, I suppose. But then in the story, Rimmer gets called away to sit with the admirals and all the admiral chums, and he gets a surprise visit from his dad, of course, who we learned about earlier. And I had very mixed feelings on this scene. I don't know about you. Do you want to explain how you felt about it first, or do you want me to wax lyrical?
Well, my thoughts on this were kind of all tied up with the whole thing about Rimmer and his descent in the world. So maybe as that goes into other things as well, let's hear yours on this particular bit first.
I think you're right, it does play into what happens later, which we'll get into, but he's at the table and he's getting everything he wants. He's getting young people coming up to him and say, "Oh, you're such an inspiration, sign my book, blah blah blah." And then his dad appears, and it's played for laughs. He's saying, "I really wanted to tell you," and he says it over and over again, and it's funny. And he's, "Oh, you're a disappointment or whatever," which obviously hits Rimmer hard, because up till this point, this game's been great for him. It's everything he ever wanted, and now it's that stark reality of what his father was like has come back. But then it's revealed that it wasn't Rimmer's manifestation; it was the cat's manifestation for some reason. And I don't know, I think playing off what we said earlier, you can have those laughs with Rimmer's dad, but I just felt that could have been a really nice moment for this to be a true crushing blow for Rimmer, done in a semi-serious way where we see that have impact, because we know Chris Barry can do the emotional stuff because he did it earlier. I just thought it was a bit of a wasted gag. It didn't really make me laugh that this was it was just the cat messing around. And it doesn't really make sense then with, because I guess we'll say it now, obviously as the episode progresses, we learn that Rimmer's mind can't allow himself nice things, basically, so his experience gets worse and worse and worse. And I would say that ties into with his dad appearing and saying that, but we clearly hear the cat say that it's his manifestation.
Yeah,
so
that's kind
it just
of what
seems
I was
like a very
say,
weird
that it doesn't tie in with the rest of the Rimmer story in this, because that it would have felt better if it had been him doing this. The only thing I can think is that maybe it wasn't really the cat's manifestation. It was the beginning of Rimmer's, but working against his mind, working against him. But the cat just wanted to get in on it and was like, "Hey, I'll take credit for this."
Yeah, and I guess that would fit in with his character. I just think there's no obviously further explanation to that, is there? It's literally the cat says, "Oh, it was mine," and then the scene changes. It's like, okay, and and we never see his dad again. You know, I thought maybe his dad will pop up again, you know, in later in the episode or this game experience, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
Which makes me just feel, to me at least, the whole thing had a really good setup. I like the setup that Rimmer's in that place where he's got everything he wants, but then it's the one thing he didn't want to see appears. I like that setup. That's a good setup. And you could have gone either way. You could have made it really funny. You could have made it really emotional. But I just think the whole, just including the cat saying that and just being like, basically saying, lol, it was me. I don't know. It just sort of, it took all of that out of it for me.
I agree. I agree with you. It didn't work for that reason. I can only think that from a narrative point of view, from a story structure point of view, they needed something to set up that you can have an effect on someone else, so that later on when Rimmer, he's sabotaging himself, but also his sabotages start to affect the others as well. There's already been that kind of setup for that. Oh yeah, you can affect the others in here too, negatively, and then because that's what happens, and then he ends up ruining the game for them because he gets them buried in sand with jam on their faces, so that the ants are going to eat them. You know, so I wonder if it was there to sort of set up that concept that they can affect each other as well as themselves.
Yeah,
that doesn't excuse it though, because I do think it would be better if it was all himself. But I think making slight excuses for them, that might be why they did it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just think it was a bit of a weak gag in general. And I think, you know, comedies have weak gags. I just felt that was the worst place to have a joke that, for me at least, didn't land. If it had been a very funny payoff, sure. But yeah, I don't know. That just really brought it down for me a little bit. But then there were other jokes that were so simple that were great. Well, I'll save it actually for our funniest moment when we get there.
Okay. So. And then they, you know, when Rimmer does sack, you know, he does lots of things, as well as his, from when his father insults him, things seem to get worse and worse for him. He ends up pulling up with, he's now married to McGruger and has 7 kids and is got a mortgage, none of which he wanted. And he ends up being a drunk tramp. And then and then calling back to earlier, the Outland Revenue guy turns up looking for his money, and he says he's going to break his bones. So, you know, I think that all of that was handled quite well. And then they leave the world. They take the helmets off and they go in to, you know, their quarters. And then the guy comes out of the
comes out the cupboard, which really made me laugh just because I wasn't expecting
the Outland Revenue guy comes out of the cupboard, and they're still in the virtual reality world, basically.
Yeah, I thought that was what was implied, because obviously at the end, when he slams his thumb because he's going to break his bones, he kept to his word. You get a little game over graphic, which I thought was neat, and it made me think, okay, was it like, you know, an Inception thing where they thought they'd come out of the virtual world, but it was just their manifestation? And I think it gave closure to that. I think
because just before that, I just remembered what happened just before that. So they'd gotten out of the game, you know, as far as they're concerned, and then they find one more letter, which is Rimmer getting promotion to officer.
Yes.
And at that point I was thinking, I don't remember that happening. I don't remember him becoming an officer. And then, like, a long running thing. So I was already suspicious then, and then the guy came out and I was like, oh yeah, they're still in the game.
They're still in the game, yeah. For me, it was literally just the game over graphic that signalled it to me. I think if that hadn't have been there, it probably would have taken me like another episode to fully realise. Obviously, this is my first time, of course, but yeah, I think that's a good mechanic there.
Did you think there was just a 3 million year old Outland Revenue guy just hiding in their wardrobe?
Yeah, because I thought that would be really funny. Like the whole, you know, the tenacity of the tax system, how that they'll always be after you, even 3 million years in the future.
He's been in suspended animation all this time just to get these taxes off of Rimmer.
But that, honestly, that game over screen helped me a lot, because it was literally like, oh, okay, they were in the game. So yeah, no, I thought it was a nice addition. But yeah, a good way to close out the episode. Really funny.
What was your funniest moment?
It sounds so daft. Probably just because it caught me off guard, but I couldn't stop laughing. I actually rewound 10 seconds so I could watch it again. It's when they're on the golf course and Cat talks about his half fish, half human girlfriend, Miranda, who then emerges from the water. And I think it was just the costume. I have got this very obvious fish head stuck on this poor woman. She's just like looking around with like big old eye. It really made me laugh because when he mentioned it, like a lot of things in Red Dwarf, a lot of things get mentioned, but you don't see them. It's left to your imagination. Whereas this was like, no, there it is. There she is. And you're like, oh, okay, it's a half fish, half human. That just really made me chuckle. It was a great example of visual comedy where that didn't need any more than what was said. Do you know what I mean? You just said, oh yeah, my girlfriend, half fish, half human. Followed by a very, very, very dirty joke for Red Dwarf straight after. I don't know if you caught it, where...
I don't think I did.
I think it was... Holly said...
Somehow I'd imagine she'd be a woman on top and a fish on the bottom. No? That's a stupid way round.
And he does this little thing with his tongue, and I was like, that's very rude.
I did not spot that.
It was either, I swear he did. I remember he looks either directly into or almost at the cat. It's very much like a wink moment, and I was like, that's very dirty. But I felt that's maybe pushing at the very edges of the sort of humour Red Dwarf was probably allowed to do.
Well, it is an adult. It is an adult comedy.
True.
It was on Past the Watershed. Why not?
Why not? It just again, it came out of nowhere. I was like, oh, so not only have you killed me off with this half fish, half woman, but now you've just made a very dirty joke. But yeah, that was it for me. What about you? What was your funniest?
The one that got me laughing out loud probably the most was actually, and I do hope people weren't offended by it and have taken it in the sort of light-hearted nature I think it was intended. But there's a hollow. One of the things they get through the post is hollow news from Earth from 3 million years ago, and there's a news item about the first page of the Bible being found.
If genuine, it belongs at the beginning of the Bible and is believed to read, "To my darling Candy, all characters portrayed within this book are fictitious and any resemblance to persons living or dead is purely coincidental." Which
tickled me.
Yeah.
And I do hope people of a religious disposition aren't offended by it. I think it's a fun joke, and they even add a little bit in the end there to sort of saying religious groups are disputing this or something like that, or just as a little thing. But it did tickle me and did make me laugh.
I noticed in that news report she said it's like the 27th of Geldof, and was that a pun at the time? Because obviously, for those who don't know, Bob Geldof was behind Live Aid and big charitable efforts and stuff. I've seen in a lot of movies or TV shows of the time people joke about, oh, Geldof's gonna just make him president. He's so humble. He's so good. Just name a month after him. Do you know what I mean? There was very much a lot of that, it seems, joke praise about him. So I wonder if that was maybe a lean to that. I don't know.
Maybe. Could be.
Yeah. I don't know. I just caught it out. I was like, oh, that's funny. It's 27th of Geldof. But as we do on this show as well, we rate each episode. How many scutters out of 10? Not 5, 10. More variety. I'll kick this to you first, Phil. What do you give it?
I have given it 8 out of 10 scutters.
8, nice.
I think this slightly peaks it. It's not perfect. There are some moments in it, like we've talked about with Rimmer's dad appearing as he does in the virtual reality world and things. But I found this. I like the concept. I like the virtual reality concept. I like the jokes are funny for most of it. There's some nice touching. There's the fact that there is this quiet moment where we see them bonding as well. That was really nice. I like that.
Yeah, for sure. Oh,
what
nice.
about yourself?
7 out of 10. 8 out of 10. Sorry, you gave it. I think I'd give it a 7.5. I think because for some reason similar to yours. The thing we said about Rimmer's dad in the VR world specifically. As I said, I just think that whole it had a great setup, which I think wasn't well utilized at all, or it didn't pay off for me. Some of the blue screen effects, and I know it's of a time, but even there, as we said, there were other methods they could have done to make it look a bit more convincing or whatever. But the bits that I love, the scene on the space deck, as I call it, with him chatting about his dad, one of the best emotional moments of the series so far, in my opinion. The concept of the VR world is great. They did the best with what they could with the budget, which I admire as well. And, again, some really great, funny moments in there as well, whether that's Miranda the Fish Woman or all the moments we've talked about. But, yeah, I don't know. I just felt it was... Yeah, I think it was... the main scene that rubbed me the wrong way was that one with Rimmer's dad in the VR world, definitely. But, yeah, not a bad episode by any means. But, yes, I think a 7.5 for me is fair on this occasion.
And then one final occasional feature we do on this show is What Would Dave Lister Do? WWDLD. And where we take something that is kind of topical from the point we're recording, at least, and talk about what would Dave Lister do in that situation. How would he handle it?
Yeah.
What are we going to do this week?
I think the one we're going to do this week, bear in mind, this happened again today as we were recording it, so you'll be able to pinpoint what day it is. But what would Dave Lister's roadmap to freedom be from the lockdown? For anyone who, I don't know who's missed it, you've been living under a rock. But recently, our Prime Minister announced, here's how we're going to do it in 4 phases. But, say Dave Lister's PM. What do you think, Phil? How's he going to get us out of this one? What's his plan?
Well, I think very first thing he would be reopening is the curry houses. He would want a nice Vindaloo to open up that with. He may probably might include some social distancing. And frankly, with Dave Lister, you probably don't need to massively have rules about social distancing. I think the smell of his clothes will keep people at a fair enough distance away from him. Yeah. So, I think curry houses first is the main thing that he would want reopened. Key thing for him. He probably not that fussed about schools reopening. I don't think he values education that much.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think he'd want to get sports back on the go. We know he's a big
he mentions that in this episode,
guy.
wasn't it? I can't remember what the sport was.
It was like 2 seasons of... He does say it, doesn't he? It looked like basically like space football or something like that. But yeah, I think you're right. I think curry houses, sport would be like top priority. That's phase 1. Schools can be phase 4 or 5 as far as he's concerned. But I think he'd just be very lackadaisical about it. Not in a horrible way. I just think, we all know he's a bit of a slob. And I think, the whole idea of lockdown where you can just be inside and do what you want in your own home and not worry... Well, for some people, not everyone, of course, some people not worry about work. I think for him, that lifestyle, he's not too bothered by it. So I think he'd need a fair bit of prodding from those around him, like Rimmer, his... should we say his second in chief in house or whatever. I think Rimmer'd be the main one trying to organise it, and then he'd just have to shove him, in front of a camera and say, "Read this." I don't think Lister's that bothered about not being a slob anymore.
Absolutely. Hey, look, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel or any other means that allow you to do a comment, then why don't you tell us what you think Dave Lister would do to get us out of lockdown? We are recording this towards the end of February, if you're wondering. I have no idea when it's going out.
But let us know anyway, and maybe let us know in the comments as well. Give us some scenarios that you'd be interested in. What would you want to see Dave Lister do? Just, let us know. Get creative with it. Let's see what we can come up with.
Well, we will be back for another episode next time, just to point people in various directions. I should say, we have now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you will have seen our brilliant intro, which was made by George, aka Ace Creeper. He put that together for us. The music is done by a guy called Stephen Kingsbury. I will leave links to all of these people below, who is a composer of various musical theatre things, and the brilliant illustrations that are used in that opening are done by Sophie. Links to all of them in the comments below on YouTube and in the descriptions of various wherever else we manage to get this podcast out on. So I haven't credited them enough in these episodes, mainly because we didn't have most of this stuff while we were recording the first 6 episodes. I was still waiting for it. So I haven't been crediting them up until now because I didn't have it. I didn't know about it until then. We did a lot of pre-recording for this podcast. So find all them in the comments below, and you can also find us on the internet. Adam, where can they find you?
Just type in Adam Martyn with a Y on YouTube. I should just pop up. I make loads of stuff on pop culture, mainly things like Doctor Who. And on Twitter, I'm just Adam Martyn Actor. Go and give me a follow there for just general updates and general rubbish that I post. But yeah, those are the two main places to find me. Obviously, if you're watching, you'll be on Phil's YouTube channel right now, so go and give him a subscribe. But Phil, where else can they find you?
As we said, if you're listening on or watching on YouTube, you're already on my YouTube channel, then hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But if you are not, if you're listening on Spotify or one of the other platforms we hope to get on, then check out my YouTube channel. It's Philip Hawkins, all one word. I am the Philip Hawkins standing in front of some TARDIS roundels in my picture because I talk a lot about Doctor Who on my channel. It's not the only thing I talk about. I also talk about Star Trek, the MCU, any other pop culture that sort of takes my fancy. But it is a lot of Doctor Who. And now Red Dwarf. I should do some other Red Dwarf videos to accompany this, shouldn't I?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So we will see you next week for the 3rd episode of Series 2.
We shall.
See you then.
See you later.